Well, good morning after yet another night of who would have thunk it, or I didn't really expect that this year. That seems to kind of be the reoccurring theme right now is each and every time. I never really thought I'd see that. I certainly didn't think I'd see this team win 8 out of 9. I didn't think I'd see 30-point blowouts this year, but they do happen, and they're happening a little bit with more regularity this year in the lockout season than they've had happened in some other seasons. So maybe that's not so crazy. And the Clippers certainly on the middle of a back end or a middle of a back to back to back wilted pretty quickly last night. But once again, just another one of those moments that makes you just kind of shake your head and wonder what's going on. I'm going to try to go small picture last night's game and then big picture into what's going on. There's some interesting things taking place in the NBA as a whole, but maybe I'll wait for tomorrow on an off day for that in a lot of ways. So little picture things last night. I just we're seeing this each night in different manners, but last night I thought really maybe the biggest thing in the game was Raja Bell's defense on Chauncey Billups. So without Chris Paul and without Mo Williams, Chauncey Billups is going to have to. Blake Griffin's going to try to score, and Chauncey Billups is going to have to be a really big second scorer. And Raja just symbolized the whole night by making it really tough on Chauncey Billups. And Chauncey went 1 for 4 in the first 8:37 of the first quarter when he was being guarded by Raja. Then he got going a little bit when Raja was out of the game in the second quarter, and finished with 10 points at the half, and then he was 0 for 2 and struggling to get free, and then threw a nasty elbow right into Raj's face that was just the ultimate sign of frustration. It was the act kind of before the quit. And then finally he commits the foul on Devin Harris on the hard foul on the breakaway, and that's his fourth foul, and he's done for the night. And that to me kind of and the game was over. The moment Chauncey went out of the game with 4 fouls, the game was over. And to me, that symbolized a lot of the night. And maybe on the big picture end of things, symbolized a little bit of who the Jazz have become. That they are beginning with Raja kind of getting in Kobe's face. Watson last night gets in on back-to-back picks and just decides to take a foul for it. There is something to taking fouls. There is something to setting tones. The Jazz right now, and now we're kind of into the big picture faster than I imagined, are tough to play. They are a team that no one is going to want to come in here. And in the lockout shortened season, with the fact that Dallas plays the Clippers tonight and then comes into our building on Thursday, that Minnesota plays the Clippers and then comes into our building. The fact that that is what these guys are experiencing, if you are tough to play and you can maintain that, then you're going to get some wins out of it, regardless of talent, regardless of a lot of other things. You're going to get wins by just being a total pain and being difficult to play. And right now, the Jazz have done that. They've got depth. They come to you at you in waves, and they are very, very difficult to play. And then, last night, maybe some of the versatility in the front court that's valuable. I think a huge issue, Ty didn't really agree with me on the pregame show on this, is going to be that Jefferson and Millsap, if they can start to share possessions, you're lessening the burden on Jefferson. He doesn't fatigue as much as he might have during the year last year. And on the other side, Millsap is just frankly a more efficient player who can do more things. Al has some things he does very well, and he is getting the tougher defensive matchup every night, which is hurting him a little bit. There's some reasons why Paul just might be a better offensive player, but nonetheless, if you divide them between the two and can pick your spots, there's something to it. And Blake Griffin's a bad defensive player. There was actually a very interesting article on True Hoop yesterday about the fact that he has short arms, which hurts him defensively. He's always been very poor defensively. He's looking to leak out. He's trying to stay out of foul trouble to stay on the floor. And Millsap took it to him early in the game while Jefferson struggled with DeAndre Jordan. And, even Millsap took it to Gasol the other night. So I was going to say the only time you can't kind of find your one matchup is probably against the Lakers. But there may be some others. But right now, the Jazz have the ability in that post to find each matchup. And it almost makes where Al was having a tough night for a little while last night and shooting a lower percentage. Those possessions, even when Al doesn't make it, are valuable because you're banging into the post, making a guy work, making somebody play a lot of seconds defensively. That's a very underrated concept, by the way. Making teams play long possessions defensively wears them out, prevents them from running the other way. If someone's been in the defensive crouch for, you know, 18 seconds, they're not about to run the other way, and that's a lot of what the Jazz did to Denver. It's a lot of the way the Jazz had the Clippers fold as well. So that combination sure is becoming potent. Millsap last night was ridiculous. He scored a fadeaway jumper from the right block. He scored out of the left block. He got the ball angle right, put on the floor with the left hand through the lane. He scored a runner coming from the right into the middle of the lane. He took a turnover and went coast to coast with it. He's literally scored his first 5 field goals in 5 different fashions. Uh, you know, and Blake just had no answer, and frankly, the Clippers had no answer. And the Jazz are interesting here in the sense that if you do have those 2 different post players, and you have to have two, there aren't many teams that have to game plan for 2 different post players in how you're going to do it. And if the Jazz do things correctly and move the ball as they have been recently, those things can certainly help out a great deal. Those things by having 2 post players, if you move the ball, other teams shouldn't be able to rotate quickly enough. Other teams won't be able to bring their double teams. Lots of different things that take place. So those 2 things. Now, big picture for a second, then we'll get into some more specifics. The fact that they're tough to play, they're not going to be able to maintain that every night all year. This schedule's too brutal, and March is ridiculous. And 2, the fact they have both of those post players, and then maybe the third, they come in waves, which may be related to the first. Those are the reasons why you can kind of say, okay, this can continue. There are some things I'd say where you still have to pull back a little bit. And I don't know how far you pull back anymore. I'm definitely into a season here if I never would have thought it. And so at some point you have to kind of erase from your memory all the things you thought you were going to see this year. I think when the numbers will be skewed after last night, but coming into this night, they're 13th in the league offensively and they're 13th in the league defensively. And, if you do that, you're going to be a playoff team. I mean, that's just you're slightly above average in both categories, and there aren't many teams that actually do that. Now, what has to be realized is the last stretch of home games have been New Orleans without Eric Gordon, Milwaukee without Andrew Bogut, Memphis without Zach Randolph, New Jersey without Lopez, and the Clippers without Chris Paul. You're taking advantage of it. And I think what the fact that they're taking advantage of it says is that they're not as weak as frankly, I thought they could be, or that a lot of people thought they could be during this season. But I'm not sure that we really should take the leap yet to believe that they're as strong as they seem to be. So I'm going to hold reserve a little bit still in regards to just what's taking place and why. Now, a question I got off, it actually didn't come in off Locke tip-off, but I saw it on the it was really a very good question. It's from JTOLBOE. I can never pronounce these things. Tolbo? Whatever. What changes have happened that allowed Millsap and Al combo to go from poor defense and rebounding to better play? Well, they're not great rebounding still. It'll be interesting to look at just those 2 together rebounding-wise, because the rebounding numbers for the Jazz are only okay, but they're better. But I'll tell you what. There was one play last night that I thought really exemplified how the Jazz are vastly different defensively. Caron Butler had the ball in the left wing, and I apologize, I don't remember who was guarding. It might have been CJ. And he drives he's on the left wing. He takes a left-hand drive to the baseline side, and Jefferson slides down, blocks off his path, and Butler shoots a 17-foot jump shot. He makes the shot. To me, that's actually the most irrelevant aspect of this whole play. What's relevant to me is that the Jazz had a defensive scheme. He was forced the correct direction. Jefferson cut off his path with a quick, very simple, short rotation, and they forced a 17-foot jump shot. Instead of a year ago, Butler gets to the rim. Well, now, as I've been writing about all year, that 17-foot jump shot's going to go in some of the time. But it's about 0.7 points per possession if you shoot that shot. Where if you get to the rim, it's about 1.4 points per possession. That's just an enormous difference. You do that 4 times a game, and you go save 3 points a game. you're going to win 8 more basketball games in the season. That's it. That is a lot of what's going on here. And that's where a team that won 37 suddenly goes and wins 45. Because that defensive play right there. I know Butler made the shot, but there was a moment in the broadcast last night, if you're listening, where I said, just play the averages, it will work out. Certain nights it won't because it's 90 possessions is too small sample size, but on most nights it will. And that's the biggest difference that's taking place. A year ago, the ball's out on that wing. We're on the other shoulder of Butler. He's rolling into the middle. We're bringing him to defensive help, which has some philosophy reasons that work, but instead it means that Al Jefferson, who's not terrific at this stuff, is out on the floor, and he's trying to guard both right and left, and he's out at about 18, 20 feet, and he can't do it. See, I think the season fell apart last year. Back-to-back games by Portland, they just ran high pick and roll, high pick and roll, high pick and roll on us. The Jazz have generally done a pretty nice job this year of staying away from high pick and roll and keeping the ball cuddled over to the corner. Jefferson's rotation now is just 3 steps, and he's got the baseline on one side of him, so he now doesn't have to guard that side. The other side, the defenders coming down should be able to help. You can't give him a straight line. You got to make him banana. CJ sometimes allows too much of a straight line. But on that play, didn't, and you forced that jump shot instead. And particularly last night, on a night where the Clippers didn't have it, and they took the easy way out on just about every possession all night long, those are the moments that I think show how much better this team has gotten. A few other things I wanted to point out. Let's see. I just did the defense. The Kanter-Evans matchup last night was really incredible. Reggie Evans is the dirtiest player in the league, and I say that with a little disgust and a little bit of affinity for him because I've known Reggie for a long time. And I like Reggie, but he's dirty. He grabs, he holds, he pulls your shorts. He's pulled other parts of bodies. He's pulled that part of your body. He's done everything. And he was holding on to Kanter, grabbing Kanter. Kanter would go up and hold onto his arm for a rebound. Everything imaginable, and Reggie's figured out how to get away with it. And Kanter just, I think it blew his mind. I'm going to go to practice today to talk to him about that because I'm not sure he's ever experienced that in his lifetime. But those are learning experiences. There really were some cool moments last night. Burks scoring over Chauncey Billups was a really, really cool moment. Kanter battling against Reggie Evans, I think, was kind of eye-opening to see that as well. So that's what Kanter has to learn. That's what this game is. Kanter's really developing quite nicely and continuing, I think, to amaze. I only have got a minute before I got to get the kids. Does CJ's confidence being on up the last 2 games have anything to do with Howard sitting? Yeah, I think there's actually, that's from C Sublime. I think there's something in the sense that he just knew he was going to get shots and he could relax and didn't have to worry about his minutes or whether Burks was taking him. I'll tell you what, Ty Corbin has made 3 or 4 big moves this year. Started Favors instead of Paul Millsap, and then Millsap came back in and somehow I don't know if that ignited Paul, if this would have happened anyway, but it certainly seems to have worked. And now there's really no discussion on that issue anymore. The quick pull of Devin Harris seemed to ignite Devin. The Alec Burks for C.J. Miles move seemed to get C.J. going a little bit. I still need to wait and see on C.J., but the first 4 possessions of the night last night, C.J. took shots inside the paint. How great was that? So that, I think, was great, and the rebounding last night was great. Jake F. Collins goes, I know we can't count on CJ's shot to always be on, but shouldn't we expect to see that effort on D and rebounds? Yes, that's the whole frustration with CJ, is that that's exactly what he needs to do. And really, from CJ, 3 of his first 4 shots are in the lane. He's 3 of 4. Well, now if he goes 1 of 4 in his next jump shots, he actually has a decent shooting night. And that's truly what has to take place from that. Let's see, Z, I don't want to forget my man Z23. Is Raja the vocal leader? He seems to set the tone. I don't know who the vocal leader is, but I do feel like there's a collective energy on this team where nobody wants to let anybody else down. And that, I think, is going to be the key to the entire season of whether that collective energy actually exists. And I don't want to forget it. Phil Johnson was pointing this out after the game. Al Jefferson had 4 assists last night. And Phil Johnson made an interesting point that Al Jefferson has never gotten any thrill out of anything other than scoring and rebounding. And if he can start to get a thrill out of a good defensive stop and get pleasure out of an assist, those are what makes you a willing passer and a willing defender, is if you get that thrill. And Al had never done that at any point in his career. And the final thing that just can't be understated about Al is how important it was that he went to Santa Barbara. He is in shape physically in a way that's different than he's ever been in his entire NBA career. This guy has the best of intentions, and it's paying off. That is tip-off today. Hope you're well.